9.2's finale for Anduin has finally come out, and whilst it's okay, I do have a few problems with it. So, without further ado, Anduin and 9.2. It's not the first time that I've seen Anduin kind of just feel pushed back by narratives, or played up to have a huge narrative role, only to honestly be barely used at all. He was supposedly important in BFA, but honest to God, what did Anduin actually do in Battle for Azeroth? I don't remember. In Shadowlands, he's been more present, if not mostly imprisoned, tortured, or basically just being a cheap knockoff Arthas. The more you consider what Shadowlands could have been, the worse it gets. And patch 9.2, along with the Anduin finale, is honestly just another repeat of that. Before we even get into the cinematic itself, let's go over the characters that are present here. We have Sylvanas, of course, it's her expansion. Anduin, okay, he is the boss, makes sense. Jaina, yep. Uther, okay, fine. But who is an honourable mention that could honestly be here for Anduin? Bane. Where is Bane? Bane Bloodhoof? You had one shot, Blizzard, to save this absolutely hard done by cowboy of some sense of dignity, more than simply sitting in Oribos scratching his ass. This entire cinematic should be framed around Anduin, and it is, very briefly. To that effect, Bane would have been great here, a concerned voice for bringing union between Horde and Alliance, which have barely mattered at all this expansion. Both Anduin and Bane should have had a dramatic shake-up, either in their faith or simple understanding of how death works. Mortals weren't meant to see the very plane of death's existence and find out where it actually is that half of us go to get turned into battery fuel or have our minds wiped or whatever other zone you end up in, a la the Shadowlands. Unfortunately, none of that happened again, and Bane is just pushed back to uselessness. So, sorry Bane, back to the trash you go. The cinematic itself begins fairly strong. Anduin overcomes the restraint of the jailer, either by summoning ghosts of his mentors or simply something he sees in his mind's eye. It's never really explained. But seeing both Varian and Saurfang is a cool moment. And as an Alliance player, it was really great to see the last king that actually had character development since Legion do something, a nice return. Whilst it was clear that it's mainly just a rule of cool cinematic, it isn't the first time we've seen a Lich King-like entity have a ghostly figure come and comfort them. Arthas has the same thing happen with his father in his moment of death. So, okay, it's a strong start. How does the cutscene continue?
Not even a soul left for judgment. I hated you, hunted you, and with each selfish act became you. That is my burden to bear. But your legacy is at an end. Be gone then, Arthas Menethil. May the last whisper of your name fade and be forgotten.
Where to begin with the Savannah speech? Okay. Overall, the start of her monologue makes sense. I think it somewhat ruins the tone of the cutscene. It really should feel more like Anduin's moment, but it works with the Office narrative, one that hasn't actually been explored at all since BFA, but okay. And again, the only times the Office narrative was explored in BFA was through Sylvanas, who mimicked all of his actions. Still, she goes through what you would expect her to. It's the Huntress once more reaching her mark, and instead of it simply being Icecrown Citadel and the mighty king that was before her, we get this wisp and echo of nothing. I get what Blizzard is going for here, even if I kind of wish Arthas had been used better. It still works. It does, to a degree, at least. And the entire spiel ending with Savannah stating, I became you. It works, it resonates. That notion of becoming the thing that you hate most is still a very human feeling, and something that we can all understand. When one turns around to acknowledge it, that makes it even more understandable. But what we're left here is with her pitying Arthas for what he became, and then simply leaving. That's what should happen, at least. Much like Tyrande, who had to leave and let Sylvanas go, turn the other cheek. That would have been the moment which allows Sylvanas to have this tirade and then leave in a more dignified manner. Of course, that would completely ruin the rule of cool, big bombastic moments that Blizzard is known for, so instead what we get is something that completely ruins this cutscene and the next few quips that Sylvanas makes. Essentially disregarding Arthas completely and telling him to begone in front of two people who really should be talking right now to the final traces of their dying loved one, even if it's just an echo of not even a soul. Not only does this spit all over Uther and Jaina even being here, it is incredibly stupid in my eyes for Sylvanas to say this. She's just got over stating how she did pretty much everything that Arthas did and became him, except she wasn't battling Ner'zhul in her mind or being eaten away by Frostmourne. The writers have outright said that she joined the jailer willingly, and whilst there was some manipulation in the background, she chose to become a Lich Queen of sorts until she didn't because she got angry? Again? Blizzard, you had this down. Letting the Banshee Queen have this one moment of recognition of her own failure and sympathy would have been a nice acknowledgement of the new Sylvanas, with both sides of her soul, and instead she just immediately had to go back to being a boss bitch, steal the limelight of the cutscene from Anduin, and take the final words and deny Uther and Jaina from actually really saying anything of note. Whilst being incredibly hypocritical, why are we even mentioning Arthas' legacy here? If Shadowlands is to be understood, words as written, then the jailer made him do everything and manipulated him too, right? So, his legacy is one of a man trying to do the right thing, being manipulated into doing abhorrent decisions, and then ultimately being confronted by his people. Isn't this literally just Sylvanas in the Shadowlands, but not processed down into happening in an incredibly small time frame with no chance for anyone to understand it? Honestly, the nerve of the writers to even try this comparison beggars belief. It feels incredibly dismissive of the former writer's work, especially when moments like this sound like they should be at the end of a raid, the end of an expansion, but really this is the curtain fall before the jailer. And we still have Sylvanas telling the entire Menethil legacy to just begone? Why? What for? That's the core of Warcraft. This entire cutscene struggles from the fact that there are two narrative threads fighting here: Sylvanas and Arthas, and Anduin's trauma. Both of these moments do really deserve their own cutscene. Clearly, Sylvanas seems to have some level of emotion to Anduin, or at least cared, as previous cutscenes and quests have seemed to imply, and characters like Jaina, Uther, Bane, and anyone else really should have a moment to address Anduin, to let him talk about what he's been through, to let him have any emotion. You just saw Saurfang and Varian, two dead Mentor figures, help him push through this. And any chance to deal with that organically is instantly blown apart by Arthas' dead horse being dragged on for slaughter once more. On the other side of this, Uther, Jaina, and Sylvanas did deserve a moment to interact with Arthas, which is by its own right stolen by this need to care about Anduin. Shouldn't Jaina get to say anything to her former prince, to give him any solace, to air past regrets? This could have been a really emotional moment. By God, would I have wanted to see Laura Bailey act that all out. By the same token, Patty Matheson did an amazing job, but there could have been more personal admittance to Arthas in a longer scene. And finally, what about Uther? God, Uther, you started out looking so promising at the beginning of this expansion, and yet here you are. That Uther has such little reaction to the finale of Arthas. I mean, honestly, his characterization is just dead. Like, this is, the leader, well, at least for many players, the leader of Paladins, one of the figurehead characters for Paladins, one of the reasons you would even roll the class in the first place. He sent his boy down to be punished in the Maw, basically doomed Anduin to suffer through this because of that, and he has nothing to really say to Arthas in this moment. I get it. He had it at the start of Shadowlands, sure, Blizzard, but again, this is a proper final goodbye to one, if not the figurehead character of World of Warcraft, and three of the characters who have the most attachment to him just do nothing. They don't weep, they don't seem emotional, they just let Sylvanas dab on his fading spirit, put on her sunglasses, and walk away from the explosion laughing. That's really what happens. It's just a moment of, yeah, this character, a really important part of Warcraft 3 and the story that we've told. Yeah, he's nothing now. He's not important. Begone. Goodbye. Oh, World of Warcraft. Emotional storytelling has never been your strong point, but this just feels like a failure. Did I get excited for Varian and Saurfang? Definitely, but this cutscene, it falls so incredibly short of being the masterpiece that it could be. Yes, it's possible, but stopping to think for a moment about the stories that they could have told here, it just frankly tells me that the writers should really stop belittling the previous works of Warcraft and maybe take a long hard look at what they're currently writing. Because as much as I love cosmology, as much as I think Zereth Mortis is really cool and the Plane of Death is interesting, it's not Warcraft, it's not Teldrassil. Thanks, by the way, I was a Night Elf player. I don't play anymore. It's not Dunmar, or the Barons, or Orgrimmar. It's not home. And Azeroth is home. You should tell these characters that gave us love for the franchise, you should tell them in a way which just does some level of justice, even if you're done with them, even if you're consigning them to the history books. Do it in a way that everyone can look back and go, yeah, you care about Warcraft. Because if you don't, then I'm never going to get invested in a character that you create, because I frankly don't trust that you actually care about this franchise. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you've never seen me before, I'm Caitlin, and I do videos on writing in video games, Dungeons and Dragons, and just generally whatever kind of takes my fancy. If you like today's content, please give the video a like and consider subscribing for more. Do you want more takes, homebrew, or D&D content? Check out my Twitter and Patreon below. It all feeds back into the things I make, and it really, really helps. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.